were two parts to the lab. The first part was to look at the different starches reacting through the gelatinization process and when in the presence of an acid and sugar. The second part, I looked at the non-crystallization process while making lollipops. These are the ingredients needed for the first part of the lab. I added 2 tablespoons of each of the starch variation and 1 cup of cold water. The first one I did was tapioca flour. I slowly added 1 cup of water in and then heated it until it's boiled. This flour has low amylose and high amylopectin, which means when it thickens, it won't have a firm or stable gel formation. When it was hot, it was slightly thick and translucent. When it was cooled, it didn't hold its shape well and it felt like slime and was less translucent. I repeated the same steps for cornstarch. Cornstarch is high in amylose, which created a firm and stable gel formation. When it was hot, it was thick, milky, opaque color, and when it was cold, it was still opaque but held its shape and was still firm. The starch for the last part of A is wheat flour. Due to dextrinization, the wheat flour had a lower ability to thicken. When it was hot, it was slightly thick and kind of a gravy consistency and opaque. When it was cooled, it was slightly thicker, didn't hold its shape well, and more of a pudding texture. These are part A starches, where you can see the difference in colors. For part B, the first variation was 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, 2 tablespoons of vinegar, and 1 cup of water. I repeated the same process as in part A. The acid was vinegar, and this hydrolyzed the starch, which decreased the viscosity of it. While it was hot, it was thick and runny and translucent. When it was cold, it became very thick, opaque white, and felt like jello, and it held its shape. The second variation was 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, 1/4 cup of sugar, 1 cup of water. Sugar in gelatinization inhibits or delays the process because it goes against starch for water. When it was hot, it was slightly thick and runny and translucent, and when it was cooled, it became thicker, opaque white, felt like jello, and held its shape. These are them cooled. These are the items needed for the second part of the lab. The second part of the lab, I decided to pick the non-crystalline candies part, which was lollipops. I put in 1 cup of granulated sugar, 1/4 cup and 2 tablespoons of corn syrup, and 1/2 cup of water, and I stirred that constantly until it boiled. I reduced the heat and waited until it reached 310, which is a hard crack stage. I checked the sugar by dipping my fork into the sugar mixture and then into cold water, and it hardened. I then stirred in 1/2 teaspoon of my strawberry flavoring and then poured the sugar mixture into my old candy molds. I didn't add any coloring, and you can really see the glassy texture, and it was very transparent. This is because when I added the corn syrup, it prevented crystallization from happening, which helped in creating the smooth, glassy look. Also, by not stirring the sugar mixture after it boiled, helps with preventing forming sugar crystals. Non-crystalline candies have a higher sugar content than crystallized candies, and it can be boiled at a higher temperature.